Dear students, I am Hiba Haq, lecturer of physics from Government Degree College, Malir Kent, Karachi. So this is my last lecture from chapter 11 of intermediate synth textbook, and it is about entropy and the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, in this lecture, I shall discuss the second law of thermodynamics. We have two statements for the second law of thermodynamics, that are Kelvin-Planck's statement and Clausius' statement. Well, Kelvin-Planck's statement relates with heat engines, and Clausius' statement relates with refrigerator. So I will explain heat engines and refrigerator. After that, I will discuss the equivalency of Clausius and Kelvin-Planck's statement. And if we talk about the application of second law of thermodynamics, for that I will discuss Carnot engine, and after Carnot engine I will explain entropy, and at the end I will solve the unsolved problems or numerical from your textbook. Okay, so let's start with the second law of thermodynamics. I will first explain Kelvin Planck's statement. According to this statement, no process is possible whose sole result is the absorption of heat from a reservoir and the conversion of this heat into work, or it is impossible or it is not possible in a cyclic process to convert heat entirely into work with no other change taking place. By no other change taking place means the rejection of fractional part of the amount of heat energy that an engine absorbs through a low temperature reservoir or cold body, or no heat engine operating or working continuously in a cycle can extract heat from a heat reservoir and convert it completely in work with zero rejection of heat. So as I already told you that Kelvin Planck's statement relates with heat engine, and according to this statement there are no perfect heat engines. We cannot operate any heat engine with 100% efficiency. By 100% efficiency I mean that the amount of heat energy the engine absorbed from hot body, and it will convert completely it into work, useful work, which is not possible according to this statement. So this is a diagram of a heat engine that according to Kelvin Planck's statement does not exist. And in this diagram we have an engine, and it absorbs QH amount of heat energy from hot reservoir which is at temperature TH, and convert all of it into work done with zero rejection of heat energy. So it is impossible to operate any engine in such a way that it convert all of heat energy into work done with zero rejection of heat energy. Okay, now let's talk about Clausius' statement. Clausius explained second law of thermodynamics in a way that no process is possible whose sole result is the transfer of heat from cooler to a hotter body, or it is not possible in a cyclic process for heat to flow from one body to another body at higher temperature with no other change taking place. Here by no other change taking place we means that expenditure of work means without expenditure of work it is impossible to flow heat from lower temperature to higher temperature, or it is impossible to cause heat to flow from a cold body to a hot body without the expenditure of energy or without the expenditure of work. So Clausius' statement, as I already told you, relates with the refrigerator, and according to him, there are no perfect refrigerator. We have to perform a certain amount of work in order to flow heat from lower temperature to higher temperature. So if there is zero energy, if there is no work done, then it is impossible to flow heat from a lower temperature to higher temperature. So here is a diagram of our refrigerator, which according to Clausius does not exist in real. So in this diagram we have a heat pump or a refrigerator, then we have a cold reservoir at temperature Tc and a hot reservoir at temperature Th. So according to Clausius statement, it is impossible to flow heat from cold body to hot body without expenditure of work. So we cannot flow heat from lower temperature to higher temperature with zero energy involvement. In order to flow heat in this way, we need some amount of work done. So I already explained the statements of second law of thermodynamics. To understand it further, I will explain heat engines and refrigerators in detail. So let's start with heat engine. A heat engine is a device used for converting heat into useful work, or we can define it in another way, which is heat. It is a device which convert heat energy into mechanical energy. Mechanical energy means useful work. So a engine or a real engine extract heat energy from a heat reservoir or a high temperature reservoir, convert a fraction of it into mechanical energy, which is work done, and reject remainder to the low temperature reservoir. So the high temperature reservoir is a source, and then low temperature reservoir is a sink, and an engine operate in between source and sink. It extracts some amount of heat energy from source, convert a part of it into useful work, and reject the remaining through sink. So this is the principle of any heat engine that exist in reality. If we talk about the construction of a heat engine, a simple heat engine consists of a gas cylinder system. I already explained you what is a gas cylinder system. A gas cylinder system is a system in which an ideal gas is enclosed in a cylinder, and the properties or characteristic of the cylinder is that its walls and piston are made up of a non-conducting material, while base is made up of a perfect conducting material. So heat can enter or leave through in a system through base. Then we have a high temperature reservoir, which is source, and a low temperature reservoir, which is sink. So with the gas initially at high pressure, we place the cylinder in contact with the high temperature reservoir. We consider heat engines that operate in a cycle. Uh, Cyclic process are those processes in which the system returns to its original initial state after passing through certain changes or operation. Now, if we talk about the working of a heat engine, the gas is allowed to expand isothermally by reducing a small amount of weight from the piston. Isothermally means that the internal energy of a gas remains constant, or the temperature remains constant. If we remove the weight from the piston, the external pressure of a gas reduces, and gas expand to achieve equilibrium state. When the gas expand, the gas temperature of gas falls, and heat enter the gas from heat reservoir, and work is done by the gas as the volume of a gas changes. As the temperature of a gas is constant, the internal energy is constant. So if a heat engine absorb delta Q amount of heat energy, then according to first law of thermodynamics, delta Q is equal to W, where delta U, that is internal change in internal energy, is 0. So and delta Q is equal to QH minus QL, means the amount of heat energy absorbed from hot body and the amount of heat energy reject from through cold body. So here we have a diagram of a heat engine that shows the working of a heat engine, and we have a gas filled cylinder, and this is the sink, and then this is the source, and then this is the parameter that shows the pressure. So if a certain amount of heat energy is absorbed by gas from source, it convert a part of it into work done. You can see that the piston is moving and reject the remaining through sink. that you can see this from this arrow. So this is another diagram in which we have a high pressure high temperature reservoir, then low temperature reservoir, and then engine. So an engine absorb QH amount of heat energy from high temperature reservoir, convert a part of it into work done, which is W, and then reject the remaining QC through sink. So this QC is equal to QH minus W. So this is the input and this will be the output. If we talk about the efficiency, efficiency is output upon input. So we just divide the output and the input to get the efficiency. So efficiency of heat engine is defined as the ratio of net work done by the engine to the quantity of heat absorbed from the heat reservoir. We represent it with eta. Mathematically, eta is equal to W upon QH, and W will be equal to delta Q according to the first law of thermodynamics. I already explained it in working. So eta will be equal to delta Q upon QH, where delta Q is QH minus QL, and we get QH minus QL upon QH. If we divide QH by QH, we get 1, and if we divide QL upon QH, we get QL upon QH. So a final formula for efficiency is 1 minus QL upon QH. Now for 100% efficiency, we need to put QL is equal to 0, that is no rejection, and it is impossible to operate engine in such a way. Okay, after heat engine, let's talk about refrigerators or heat pump. And refrigerators are basically the reverse of heat engine. That is, reversing a heat engine gives a refrigerator which takes in mechanical work and transfer heat from cooler to hotter body. A refrigerator is considered to operate in a cyclic process, and running the cycle in reverse would represent the operation of one type of a refrigerator. Any refrigerator extract QL amount of heat from low temperature reservoir at temperature TL, and QH amount of heat is discharged to the high temperature reservoir at temperature TH with the expenditure of work. So if we talk about efficiency, efficiency in case of refrigerator will be QL upon W, where QL will be the output and W will be the input. So since it is a cyclic process, it means that the internal energy remains constant. So according to first law of thermodynamics, W will be equal to delta Q, and efficiency will become QL upon QH minus QL. So for 100% efficiency or for a perfect refrigerator, W should be 0. So if we put W 0, we get eta is equals to QL upon 0. Something upon 0 is infinity, hence the efficiency of performance is infinite, so which is not possible in real. So if we talk about Kelvin equivalence to Clausius and Kelvin-Planck's statement, for that we suppose that Kelvin-Planck's statement is false, then we can construct a perfect heat engine. If this perfect heat engine is connected with a refrigerator, the work done by the engine can be used to operate a refrigerator. It means that heat energy can be transferred from cold body to hot body without the expenditure of work, which is against Clausius' statement. So here we have a high temperature reservoir at temperature TH, and then we have a heat engine with 100% efficiency. If this engine absorb QH amount of heat energy from high temperature reservoir and convert all of it into work with zero rejection of heat energy through low temperature reservoir, then if we connect this heat engine with a refrigerator, then this refrigerator use this amount of work done in order to flow heat from low temperature reservoir to a higher temperature reservoir. That is, the refrigerator extract QL prime amount of heat energy and discharge QH prime of heat energy using this work done. So it means that if Kelvin-Planck's statement is false, then Clausius' statement falls automatically. So we can say that the Kelvin-Planck's and Clausius statements are equivalent in their consequence, and either statement can be used as the expression of second law of thermodynamics. You can use any of the statements to explain the second law of thermodynamics. Okay, now I will explain Carnot engine. Sadi Carnot in 1824 proposed an ideal heat engine which is free from friction and heat losses. So, a Carnot engine is a device which is used to convert heat energy into mechanical energy, and the principle of Carnot engine is same as that of heat engine. That is, it works on the principle of cyclic heat engine. All cyclic engines absorb some quantity of heat energy from high temperature reservoir, which is source, convert a part of it into useful work, and reject the remaining part of heat to the low temperature reservoir, which is sink. If we talk about the construction of a Carnot engine consists of a cylinder with non-conducting walls and conducting base. An ideal gas is enclosed in the cylinder by means of a frictionless and non-conducting piston. Two reservoirs at different temperature, high temperature reservoir at TH and low temperature reservoir at TL, serve as source and sink respectively. So here we have the heat, then expansion, then cool, and then contraction. So this is the high temperature reservoir, and this is the cold temperature reservoir. This is sink, this is source. We will supply heat energy from source, and then certain amount of heat energy is rejected through sink. Okay, now working of Carnot engine. The working of Carnot engine is based on four reversible processes. Two are isothermal and two adiabatic. These are isothermal expansion, adiabatic expansion, isothermal compression, and adiabatic compression. So we have isothermal expansion. We firstly expand gas isothermally, then we place this cylinder on an insulator and expand gas adiabatically. Then we place this cylinder on low temperature reservoir and compress gas isothermally, and at the end we place this cylinder again on an insulator and compress gas adiabatically. So I will explain each of these processes in detail. So let's start with isothermal expansion. So the first process is isothermal expansion. The cylinder is placed on the source, that is HTR, high temperature reservoir, which is at temperature TH, and the gas is allowed to expand by raising the piston. So we just remove the external pressure by reducing the weight on the piston and allow the gas to expand to achieve equilibrium state. During expansion, temperature of gas falls and high temperature reservoirs supply QH amount of heat to the system so that the temperature of gas remains constant. So after isothermal expansion, we expand gas adiabatically, by which we put this cylinder on an insulator. After that the cylinder is placed on an insulator and the gas is allowed to expand further adiabatically, that is no heat enter or leave the system. So in this expansion the temperature of gas falls because the source is now removed from the base, and when the gas expands the temperature of gas falls. So after that we place the cylinder on low temperature reservoir, which is at temperature TL, and the gas is allowed to compress slowly by putting weight on the piston. During compression the temperature of gas rise, and but low temperature reservoir reject QL amount of heat energy from the system so that the temperature of gas remains constant. And the last process is adiabatic compression. After that we place the cylinder on an insulator and the gas is allowed to compress further adiabatically, that is no heat enter or leaves the system. So in adiabatic compression the temperature of gas rise as again the source is removed or replaced by an insulator. So the temperature of gas rise and the system has regained its initial state, thus one cycle is complete. So here we have a graphical representation of Carnot cycle. In this we draw a graph between pressure and volume. The path AB shows isothermal expansion. For isothermal expansion, we expand gas in such a way that temperature of a gas remains constant. So when the gas expands, its volume increases and its pressure decreases. So after isothermal expansion, we have adiabatic expansion, which is represented by path BC. So when we place the cylinder on an insulator and allow the gas to expand further, so there is a small decrease in pressure and small increase in volume. After adiabatic expansion, we have isothermal compression. Now we compress gas in such a way that temperature of a gas remains constant. When the gas is compressed, the volume of a gas reduces, decreases, and pressure increases. And this is represented by path CD. And after that, we have adiabatic compression, and then it is represented by path DA. And in adiabatic compression, we have a slight increase in pressure and a slight decrease in volume. So after adiabatic compression, the cylinder reaches to its initial, or the piston reaches to its initial point, which is A. So if we talk about the efficiency during the cycle, heat absorbed by the engine from source, which is high temperature reservoir, is QH. Heat rejected by the engine from engine to the sink, which is low temperature reservoir, and it is QL. And heat energy converted into work, net work done, is equal to QH minus QL. So efficiency eta is equal to W upon QH, or according to first law of thermodynamics, W is equal to delta Q, eta is equal to delta Q upon QH, or we can say that eta is equal to QH minus QL upon QH, and efficiency is 1 minus QL upon QH. Now Carnot concluded that efficiency of engine depends upon two fixed temperature, TH and TL, where TH is the temperature of source and TL is the temperature of sink, having the same ratio of heat rejected to heat absorbed, which is QH and QL. In an absolute temperature scale, the ratio of TH and TL is equal to the ratio of QH and QL. So we can write efficiency in this term, that eta is equal to 1 minus TL upon TH. Note that temperature is measured in Kelvin. Now, if we talk about entropy, it is defined as the measure of the disorder of a system. It is denoted by S. If delta Q amount of heat energy is added to a system and T be the change in temperature, then entropy is delta Q upon T. This is change in entropy of a system is delta Q upon T. The second law of thermodynamics can also be stated as follows, that if an isolated system undergoes change, it will change in such a way that its entropy either remain constant or it increases. So entropy of an isolated system is never be negative or less than 0. It is measured in joules per Kelvin. So this is all about chapter 11. I have explained every topic, and now I'm going to solve the unsolved problems from chapter 11. Let's start. Question number 1 is the normal body temperature is 98.4 degree Fahrenheit. What is this temperature on Celsius scale? So the data we have is temperature on degree Fahrenheit scale is 98.4 degree, and we have to convert it in centigrade scale or Celsius scale. So if we talk about the working formula, we know that temperature on one scale minus lower fixed point of that scale, which is the melting point of ice, divided by a number of intervals between two fixed points, is equal to temperature on other scale minus lower fixed point divided by number of interval between two fixed points. Two fixed points are upper fixed point and lower fixed point. Upper fixed point is the boiling point of water and lower fixed point is the melting point of ice. So temperature on centigrade scale,
or degree Celsius, minus lower fixed point on degree Celsius is 0 degree centigrade, and total number of intervals is 100. Now if we talk about degree Fahrenheit, T temperature on degree Fahrenheit minus 32 is the lower fixed point, and we have 180 intervals between equal intervals between upper fixed point and lower fixed point. Or we can say that temperature on centigrade scale upon 10 is equal to 98.4, which is given, minus 32 upon 18. So temperature on degree centigrade is equal to 10 into 66.4 degree upon 18. If you minus 32 from 98.4, you get 66.4, and if you solve this, you get 36.88 degree centigrade. So the temperature on degree centigrade is 36.88 degree if the normal temperature of body on degree Fahrenheit is 98.4. Question number 1b. At what temperature do the Fahrenheit scale and Celsius scale coincide? For that, let us consider that a temperature at degree Fahrenheit is equal to temperature at degree centigrade is equal to T. I am applying the same formula, that temperature on one scale minus lower fixed point divided by number of intervals between two fixed points is equal to temperature on other scale minus lower fixed point divided by number of intervals between two fixed points. So if we talk about degree centigrade, temperature on degree centigrade minus 0 degree upon 100 is equal to temperature at degree Fahrenheit minus 32 degree upon 180. Or putting the value of temperature at degree centigrade and temperature at degree Fahrenheit, which is T upon 10 is equal to T minus 32 upon 18. If you cross multiply it, 18T is equal to 10 into T minus 32, or 18T is 10T minus 10 into 32 is 320. Now 18T minus 10T is minus 320, or 80 is minus 320 degree, and temperature will be minus 40 degree. So at 40 degree minus 40 degree the both scales coincides. Okay, so question number 2. A steel rod has a length of exactly 0.2 centimeter. At 30 degree centigrade, what will be its length at 60 degree centigrade? So L naught initial length of rod will be 0.2 centimeter, which is 0.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 2 meter. Then initial temperature is 30 degree. Always convert temperature into Kelvin. If we convert it in Kelvin, 30 plus 273 is equal to 303 Kelvin. So the final temperature is 60 degree, which is centigrade, which is 60 plus 273 is equals to 333 Kelvin. If we talk about change in temperature, 300 minus 303 will be 30 Kelvin. So we have to calculate the length, final length, and linear coefficient of linear expansion for steel will be 1.1 into 10 raised to the power minus 5 per Kelvin. So this is from this numerical is from linear expansion, and we know that the final length will be equal to initial length into 1 plus alpha delta t. So put the value of L naught, alpha and delta t. L will be equal to 0.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 2 into 1 plus 1.1 into 10 raised to the power minus 5 into 30, or L will be equal to 0.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 2 into 1 plus, if you multiply it, you get 3.3 into 10 raised to the power minus 4, and if you add 1, you get L is equals to 0.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 2 into 1.00033. So multiply it, you get the final length, which is 2.00066 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 meter. Question number 3. Find the change in volume of an aluminum sphere of 0.4 meter radius when it is heated from 0 to 100 degree centigrade. So this is the numerical from volume expansion. So let R naught is equal to 0.4 meter. Then we have T naught initial temperature 0 degree centigrade, which is 273 in Kelvin scale, and then at final temperature 100 degree centigrade, 100 plus 273 is 373 Kelvin. So change in temperature will be 100 Kelvin. We have to calculate change in volume. constant alpha for aluminum is 2.4 into 10 raised to the power minus 5 per Kelvin, and we know that volume expansion coefficient of volume expansion beta is equal to 3 alpha. So if we multiply 3 by 2.4 into 10 raised to the power minus 5, we get 7.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 5 per Kelvin. Now the working formula is delta V is equal to V naught B beta delta T. We need to find V naught, that is initial volume. So the volume of a sphere is 4 upon 3 pi r cube, which is 4 upon 3 pi r naught cube. So pi r naught is 0.4. So if you solve this, you get 0.26808 meter cube. Now change in volume will be 0.26808 into 7.2 exponential or into 10 raised to the power minus 5 into 100, and the final volume change in volume will be 0.001908 meter cube. Question number 4. Calculate the root mean square speed of a hydrogen molecule at 800 Kelvin. So we have to calculate VRMS of hydrogen atom, and the temperature given is 800 Kelvin. Boltzmann constant K is 1.38 into 10 raised to the power minus 23 joules per molecule into Kelvin. Now the solution, we know that we know this relationship that half mv square bar is equal to 3 upon 2 kt, or mv square bar is equal to 3 kt. We can write it in this way, that VRMS is equal to under root 3 kt upon m. So temperature is given, Boltzmann constant is constant, we need to find the mass. So for that we know that the molecular weight of hydrogen is 2 gram. If you convert it in kilogram, you get 2 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 kilogram, and Avogadro's number is Na, which is 6.023 into 10 raised to the power 23 molecules. So the mass of hydrogen atom is molecular weight divided by Avogadro's number. So if you divide 2 into 10 raised to the power minus 3 divided by 6.023 into 10 raised to the power 23, you get 3.3206 into 10 raised to the power minus 27 kilogram. So VRMS will be 3 into under root 3 into 1.38 into 10 raised to the power minus 23 into 800, temperature divided by mass 3.3206 into 10 raised to the power minus 27, and if you solve it, you get 3158.1 meter per second, the root mean square speed of hydrogen atom. So question number 5, we have two parts of this question. Determine the average value of kinetic energy of the particles of an ideal gas at 0 degree centigrade and at 50 degree centigrade. Then we have to calculate a kinetic energy per mole of an ideal gas at these temperatures. So I will solve both simultaneously. Kinetic energy, average kinetic energy is, we have to calculate average kinetic energy, which is half mv square bar, and then kinetic energy per mole, and the temperatures given are 0 degree centigrade, which is 273 Kelvin, and 50 degree centigrade, which is 323 Kelvin. So Boltzmann constant K is 1.38 into 10 raised to the power minus 23 joules per molecules per Kelvin. So we know that the formula of average kinetic energy is 3 upon 2 kt. So if we talk about 273 Kelvin, it will be 3 upon 2 into 1.38 exponential into 10 raised to the power minus 23 into 273, which is 5.65 into 10 raised to the power minus 21 joules. So the kinetic energy per mole, so the total kinetic energy is equal to the average kinetic energy multiplied by the number of molecules, which is number of moles into Avogadro's number, where n is the number of moles. So kinetic energy is actually average kinetic energy into Avogadro's number. So what we do, we just multiply this energy with 6.02 exponential 23, and for that we get 3403.65 joules per mole. If we talk about 323 Kelvin, same as it is, average kinetic energy will be 6.686 into 10 raised to the power minus 21, and kinetic energy per mole is 4026.2 joules per mole. Question number 6, A 2 kilogram iron block is taken from a furnace when its temperature is 650 degree centigrade and placed on a large block of ice at 0 degree centigrade, assuming that all the heat given up by the iron is used to melt the ice. How much ice is melt? So in this question, if we talk about the ice, we have a latent heat, which is the amount of heat required to convert a solid into liquid or vapor, or a liquid into a vapor without change of temperature. So if we talk about the data, the mass of iron is m iron 2 kilogram, already given in kilogram, no need to convert in SI system. Then temperature of iron is 650 degree centigrade, which is 923 Kelvin. Then temperature of ice is 0 degree centigrade, which is 273 Kelvin. And change in temperature will be 923 minus 273, which is 650. Since it is given that the all amount of heat energy is utilized in melting the ice, so the temperature of ice is 0 till the ice completely melts. So mass of ice, you have to calculate mass of ice. Now specific heat capacity of iron is 499.800 joules per kilogram into Kelvin, and latent heat of water is 336 into 10 raised to the power 3 joules per kilogram. So to solve this, we apply conservation of energy, that is sum of heat energy is 0, which means the amount of heat energy given by iron is utilized to melt the ice. So we have delta Q iron is equal to delta Q ice. There is no dissipation of energy. So mass of delta Q is mc delta T, which means mass of iron into specific heat capacity of iron into change in temperature, and delta Q ice, according to this definition, will be mass of ice into heat fusion, latent heat. Or mass of ice will be equal to mass of iron into C into delta T upon L. So just put the value of mass of iron, which is 2, then C 499.8, and then 650 temperature, and L will be equal to 336 into 10 raised to the power 3. We get mass of ice as 1.933 kilogram. Okay, question number 7. In a certain process, 400 joules of heat are supplied to a system, and at the same time 150 joule of work are done by the system. What is the increase in internal energy of a system? So if it is work done by the system, which means work is positive. So delta Q is 400 joules, then delta W will be equal to plus 150 joules, and you need to calculate change in internal energy, which is delta U. So according to first law of thermodynamics, we know that delta Q will be equal to delta W plus delta U. So delta U will be equal to delta Q minus delta W, or 400 minus 150, which is 250 joules. Now question number 8. There is an increase of internal energy by 400 joule when 800 joule of work is done by a system. Again, work done by a system, which means that it is positive. What is the amount of heat energy supplied during this process? So data, the change in internal energy given is 400, and then work done is 800 joule, and you need to calculate the amount of heat energy supply during this process, which is delta Q. So according to first law of thermodynamics, we know that delta Q is equal to delta W plus delta U. So delta Q will be 400 plus 800, which is 1200. So the amount of heat energy supplied during this process is 1200 joules. Question number 9. A heat engine performs 200 joules of work in each cycle and has an efficiency of 20%. For each cycle of operation, how much heat is absorbed, that is QH, and how much heat is expelled, that is QL. So efficiency is 20%, or 20 upon 100, which is 0.2. Now heat absorbed by the engine QH, and heat expelled by the engine QL. We have to find out these two quantities. where the heat energy converted into work, net work W is QH minus QL, which is 200 joules. Now the formula for efficiency is output upon input, which is W upon QH, or 0.2 is 200 upon QH, so QH will be 200 upon 0.2, which is 1000 joules. And we know that work is QH minus QL, so QL will be equal to QH minus W, so QL is equal to 1000 minus 200, which is 800 joules. Question number 10. A heat engine operates between two reservoirs at temperature 25 degrees centigrade and 300 degrees centigrade. What is the maximum efficiency for this engine? So we have to calculate efficiency eta. Temperature of source TH is 300 degrees centigrade, and which is 573 Kelvin. You just add 273 in 300. Then temperature of sink TL is 25 degrees centigrade. 25 plus 273 is 298 Kelvin. Now the formula for efficiency is 1 minus TL upon TH, so efficiency will be equal to 1 minus 298 upon 573, or efficiency will be equal to 1 minus 0.52006, and efficiency is 0.4799. Multiply it by 100, and the efficiency will be 47.99%. Okay, the last numerical. The low temperature reservoir of Carnot engine is at 7 degrees centigrade and has an efficiency of 40%. It is desired to increase the efficiency to 50%. How much degrees or the temperature of hot reservoir be increased? So this is a very important numerical, and in this numerical, if it is desired to increase the efficiency of an engine, how much degree of the temperature of hot reservoir be increased? So the temperature of a low reservoir is constant, or the cold body remains constant in both cases. So what we do, we try to find the temperature of hot reservoir using 40% efficiency, and then using 50% efficiency, and after that we subtract it to get how much degrees the temperature be increased. So let's talk about data. Temperature of sink TL is 7 degree, which is 7 plus 273, 280 Kelvin, and efficiency of an engine is 40%, which is 0.4. 40 divided by 100. Now if it is desired to increase the efficiency by 50%, I represent it by eta prime. So 50% means 0.5, and how much degrees the temperature of hot body be increased, so I mark it as delta H TH, which is TH prime minus TH. So the efficiency of a Carnot engine is 1 minus TL upon TH. Now if we talk about the efficiency of 40%, efficiency will be 0.4 is equals to 1 minus 280 upon TH, where 280 is the temperature of sink. Now 280 upon TH is equals to 1 minus 0.4, and 280 upon TH is 0.6. 1 minus 0.4 is 0.6, and TH will be 280 upon 0.6, which is 466.66 Kelvin. Now if we talk about 50%, eta prime is 1 minus TL upon TH prime. So 0.5 is equals to 1 minus 280 upon T prime H. 280 upon T prime H is 1 minus 0.5, which is 0.5. So 280 upon T prime H is 0.5, and TH prime is 280 upon 0.5, so it will be 560. Now the increase in the temperature, delta H is TH prime minus TH, which is 560 minus 466.66, and delta TH is 93.4 Kelvin. So it is all about chapter 11. So this is all about chapter 11, which is heat. I have covered all the topics mentioned in your course outline, and I solved the unsolved problems given in your textbook. Now it is your responsibility to solve the unseen problems from 5 years or 10 years. I recommend you to solve the solved problems in your textbook. I end up my lecture on these words, that the secret of getting ahead is getting started. Thank you. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. I will try my best to answer them. God bless you. Take care.